I think my favorite thing about Kaguya-sama Love is War is how you truly can take any two characters or a handful of characters, throw them in a scene together, and you know you're going to get something that's either going to be incredibly wholesome, incredibly hilarious, or incredibly dramatic, and it's always going to stick the landing. I've yet to see a single moment in Kaguya-sama that I was like, oh, you could have refused to show me that, you could have just cut it, and it would have been fine. But no, it kind of feels like we simultaneously are building progressions with character relationships while just having fun at the absurd ideas that we're witnessing. Personally, for me, my favorite moment has to be the intro, which lasted a good half of the episode, honestly. I was kind of pleasantly surprised because, personally, the idea of just these two, you and, they are too close in terms of personality types because they're both so hard-headed, and you know that someday they very well could be in a relationship, or at the very least, will just stick to what they currently have, insulting the other and, wondering why the other doesn't appreciate them. And it will always be amazing to witness. So to have like an extra long portion, because sometimes with Kaguya-sama, you get like 3 parts or sometimes even 4 parts of an episode, little mini stories, and sometimes I can find myself saying, I kind of wish we had a bit more time to maybe just extend this joke or extend this situation. So to have something that is immediately memorable from the first couple of minutes, just having the two essentially advisors to these goofballs trying to say like the obvious, what everyone's thinking in terms of the viewership. And just the idea that you is like, why can't you just be nicer to IINO? And he's like, well, she's just a horrible person. I do all these things that go out of my way to help her, and yet she just insults me and she belittles me. And, you basically are like, yeah, I can understand that. I completely see where you're coming from. And then you reverse it, right? And then we see, and how we actually get to see stuff that we don't experience as much on screen. Because I think a lot of times when it comes to these two bickering, I kind of tend to side with you a bit more because ISHIGAMI, right? I mean, he's just someone who you understand will rub people the wrong way, but at the same time, he does do his best to help other people. But then when you see how she goes out of her way to talk to the teachers and to lessen his punishments because he is such a troublemaker, you can understand why the continuous troublemaker personality would rub her the wrong way that she belittles him like she does. So you understand that in terms of the reason these two not getting along, it's because both of them are too prideful, they're too arrogant, they're too similar. Like, they literally are the same person, just reversed in a lot of ways. One is more of the delinquent type and, the lazy kind of doesn't want to do anything, and the other is the I'm going to work on the student council, I'm going to work on, the discipline committee and things like that. But they are very similar, and I love just seeing how these two advisors who, 10 years, somewhere in that nature, they've known these characters, and they know how ridiculous they are. So the idea of, like, the friendship plan, which I knew was going to blow up in their face in some way, but just the idea of, like, such a basic concept you use on children, like, hey, how about you say something nice about them? They'll say something nice about you. My boy, you going in, being like, actually complimenting her. There's no backhanded remarks. And then she just is deadpan. I have nothing to say. And it just spirals from there. From literally being like, carry her like a princess and she's almost hogtied, to just the number of times I was like, if there was a baseball bat or any sort of weapon in the room, I'm not convinced someone wouldn't have a broken arm. I really, truly feel like it could have got that violent. So my big question was, of course, we're not going to end this section of the story in terms of this kind of comedic, are they ever going to be friends? Are they ever going to say nice things about the other? How are they going to end it so this type of bickering can continue? And just the deadpan robotic voice acting and faces after the idea of being like, oh, you guys truly must like each other because only people who truly are almost in love with the other would, constantly talk shit. I really like you. Just the roboticness and how you have people like Miyuki who view it as like, oh my god, it actually worked. They're truly liking each other. I can't believe this plan worked, when really it was just kind of like, just freezing, pressing pause on the movie for a little bit, but eventually when the play starts again, it's gonna be all bets are off. But I did love seeing it just, honestly, in some ways, I think those two might be one of my more anticipated character duos this season, because we've had a lot of time with so many different pairings in this cast, but there's something about you and who just, you could probably dedicate an entire episode for a couple of weeks just to them and the shit they get up to. And honestly, while I know many of the fandom would be like, oh, I miss Kaguya, I miss Chika, this and that, I love it personally. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite point in the episode. I love the reactions. There was some I wasn't expecting, like the previously mentioned tying her up and carrying her like a princess. Probably one of the funniest moments, if I'm not gonna lie, at least from the last season or so of Kaguya-sama. Then when it came to the group date and just the idea of Hayasaka just being her, right? This maid has been such a interesting character to follow when you throw her in the middle of the two lovebirds, right? Honestly, there's been some blushing, there's been some, I think, underlying feelings that I've been curious to see would they ever explore a bit more. And in return, we get probably one of the spiciest moments that Kaguya-sama has seen today. Of course, we knew it wasn't a sex scene. We knew it wasn't. Of course, Kaguya herself was thinking it was. The dialogue and the voice acting very much from, it's so large it hurts and, I can't fit it anymore. I'm gonna use it until I'm satisfied. I was like, God damn, these voice actors are probably cracking up in the booth recording these lines because of just how insane they were. But I like the idea that it's just his singing is just so horrible. His rapping, his singing, everything about him destroys your eardrum. So when he's leaving feeling satisfied because he got to sing, he had a great time, and she's just knocked out being like, it was atrocious, I can't deal with this anymore. But I think the build up prior to it was interesting because that's where it kind of got into the more sweet / slight drama kind of tinge to it because, of course, for Kaguya, she doesn't want to see him with anyone else. The idea of going to a karaoke bar here and just, mingling, potentially a group date, all things considered, sending her maid to kind of make sure nothing happens and hopefully get him out sooner rather than later. And the fact that, you get those sweet moments because Miyuki's a good guy, all things considered. He is questionable with sometimes his reactions to things, and I think he kind of spills the beans a little too much, but I think the idea of him immediately seeing, because, Hayasaka, the prettiest girl probably in the room there, and all the leeches are gonna latch onto her, and the fact he's like, I got dumped too, you got dumped, well, let's, he's just a creep. He was just someone who didn't understand personal space. And the fact that he immediately, got her out of there because he recognized, that's not what she wanted, and the fact that she tries to seduce him. And, I mean, truthfully, who knows what would have happened had Miyuki had the voice of an angel. I think there's a lot of what-if scenarios that could have happened there. I mean, there's a very genuine possibility that she might have kissed him. I don't think it would have been like him kissing back and being like, oh yes, I love you. But I very much think had the singing not gone as horrible as it did, there's an argument to be made that there very much could have been a kiss. I don't think as extreme as the voice acting was making it and alluding to, but I think there could have been something a little more romantic. But I think if there was any way to stop the love triangle from going anywhere, a sluggish voice and, a breakup text like never rap again is probably the best way to do it. I mean, Kaguya-sama is my personal favorite rom-com. I love the romance, I love the comedy, I love the character pairings in general. I mean, just from openings to endings to voice acting, it just feels like a high-quality production. And based on what I was told last week, we should be getting a couple more seasons at the very least of Kaguya-sama, if not a full adaptation, since I have heard rumblings that we might be getting into the endgame of Kaguya in terms of the manga. So it's great to know that most likely A1 Pictures is going to pop out a full adaptation of this one, because if any rom-coms deserved it in recent memory, this one is definitely up there, if not the most anticipated full adaptation for me personally. But thoughts if you have any, what do you hope to see? I think we've had a good taste, a variety of what this season's going to have to offer, so let me know what you hope to see down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. It's the next time, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.